Ready. All right.
Awesome.
So tell me about yourself. Let's get this started. So your name's Cole Jackson. You just released your first song with studio. How does that feel?
It feels really good. I mean, it's really been kind of a pinnacle leading up to this because for the longest time I've only done remixes. I finally kind of felt like I was comfortable enough to experiment with like my own original sound. So it's been kind of a relief finishing this up and kind of getting it out and seeing people's reaction has been really cool, even in these first few days.
So your new song, Go, I've listened to it probably a couple dozen times at bare minimum over the last couple days, just trying to get the feel for it. How would you describe that song? What inspired you to create this song?
So I think the song is kind of almost a nostalgic take of those summer relationships that aren't necessarily something that is just like a summer. It doesn't only last in the summer, but both people are kind of wondering where it might take them, hence the where is this going to go, where everything is still kind of up in the air. You're living in the moment, but also you might see something greater. But it's kind of that nostalgic and almost naive feeling of wondering what the future could be like with that person, even though you've been focusing on the moment.
Okay. I have to say, I do love the soft undertones of the song. I really, really appreciate that aspect of it. I'm always a big softie, so I love hearing that sort of stuff. What was your favorite thing about this track or creating this track?
So I think my favorite thing about creating the track was I actually wrote the song while road tripping through the United States. So earlier this summer, I saved up money, or I had been saving up money for a while. And then me and some of my buddies basically picked up and drove from Dallas, Texas to Oregon, and then down the West Coast. And that's when I actually wrote the music for the song. And so that song quite literally was kind of fueled by, I guess, the energy of the West Coast, like just being in that mindset and watching those sunsets was really special. And then the second I got back home, I knew that I wanted to go for like a more bedroom pop type vocal. So Clara and I immediately connected and the song came together pretty quickly. And I just think it's a really organic way to write a song, which you don't find too often nowadays. A lot of it is in like strict studio times and things like that. But I felt like this was a true embodiment of my message with my music.
Absolutely. Like I said before, like listening to that song, I don't think I've heard stuff like it, but it's so unique and it's so you that because I listened to that song first before listening to any of your remixes, and I can feel your vibe through all of them. So I just want to say great job with the song. It's absolutely a banger. Let's go get a little personal. Tell us about yourself, like where you're from, who you are, how old you are, and where you've been.
Yeah, so I grew up in Dallas, Texas. And now this year I'll be a sophomore at the University of Texas. So I'm living in Austin. So I'm moving back there right now. So that's why I don't have my full setup. But yeah, I'm 20 years old. I turned 20 in July. Dallas was really fun to grow up in. But I originally thought I was going to stay pretty close to home. But I ended up moving to Austin just because of the music scene, which was kind of unfortunate at first, just because I moved during COVID. My freshman year was the COVID year. Which was a weird experience, but it's been really rewarding seeing the music industry coming back over the last few months. And hopefully the Delta variant doesn't screw everything over, but it seems like Austin has a really, really unique music scene that I wasn't able to find in Dallas.
All right. So another question I have is, what have been some of your favorite experiences so far as a musician or in your career in general?
Yeah, so I would say one of my favorites was getting in touch with Electric Hawk, just because their team is literally unmatched. I have a pretty funny story about that, actually. My very first show, I opened for Vincent in Dallas. And basically how that went down was I had one of my friends managing me probably 3 months prior. And we saw that Vincent had announced the show and there was no support announced. So I had my friend who really had no idea about the music industry. It was more of just like, he liked my music, so he would help me send emails and stuff. So we emailed them, followed up maybe 2 or 3 times, never even heard back. And then a few months later, before the Vincent show, I had connected with Electric Hawk and planned to release a song with them on their compilation. And the funniest thing, I mentioned to my manager, Daryl, that I had tried to play this Vincent show, but we hadn't heard back. And
just
Daryl,
1 second.
Okay.
I gotta just move for a second. Sorry. Stuff's happening. So, sorry about that.
No worries at all.
Like you, I'm in the process of moving, so I'm in an area that I'm not as familiar with, and there's some work going on.
Yeah, no worries at all.
So, sorry, could you restart that train of thought?
Yeah, so after my friend and I, or my friend or manager at the time, had tried to book that show, we just hadn't heard anything back. And then I joined Electric Hawk, which was still prior to the Vincent show. And I mentioned to my manager that I was really interested in playing this show. And he ended up emailing them. And less than 12 hours later, I was committed to the show, which was kind of a really cool experience. And it kind of changed my mindset about like where I was in music, because the Electric Hawk family is just really unmatched. And as soon as I joined them, I knew that that was the place to be.
That was the place to be for you. So, all right. So, switching gears again, about your remixes, you've done plenty of remixes of songs from Travis Scott, Billie Eilish, A$AP Rocky. Which is your personal favorite, do you think, of all your remixes you've done so far?
So prior to playing any shows, I probably would have said the Billie Eilish remix, because that was probably the first song that I made that I was really happy with. But now that I've played a few shows, not too many yet, but just a few, I really like seeing the crowd's reaction to the Electric Love remix. Just because that song has a lot of like, it has 3 completely different drops that all are different vibes. So it's kind of cool seeing the progression of the crowd through each drop as they kind of intensify, which has been kind of a really rewarding thing that I've seen during shows.
All right. Yeah, I'd have to agree that Born remix is amazing, along with your Louis the Child remix are probably my personal favorites.
Thank you.
Going on to someone you've collaborated a lot, tell us about your collaborations with Quiet Bison.
Yeah, so Quinn and I met probably 5 or 6 years ago. It's been a long time now. And this was actually when he was still making music under the name Radii, Radii. So he wasn't even, Quiet Bison was not even born at this point yet. But I was literally blown away because he was still making music on Skull Candy headphones. And it was way better than anything I was doing with better equipment. And I was just blown away by his talent. And so we made a few remixes, which honestly, I'd love to do something more with him, just now that our styles have kind of matured a little bit versus kind of that nostalgic, like first kind of stabs at doing remixes and making music. Because Quinn, of course, has progressed so much. I'm always blown away by all the singles he's releasing. But yeah, collaborating with him was really cool just because he has such a unique take on music and such a inherent talent that I feel like is so hard. I would say he's more talented than a lot of the biggest names today, which was really cool to see kind of before he started to gain that following.
All right. That's awesome. I've got to check out more of both of your works. I'm excited to hear more things from you guys. Can you give any details about what you're planning next, or a tour on the way, a single, an album even?
Yeah, so I have a lot of music in the works right now, and I'm still kind of figuring out whether I want that to be a bunch of singles or if I want to try to put together something bigger like an EP or an album. But either way, I'm hoping, as long as Delta doesn't ruin anything, I'm hoping to play a good amount of shows this fall in Austin, and hopefully some up north and other cities if I can land some. But definitely expect a lot of new singles later this year, and hopefully early next year, something bigger, either an EP or maybe something better. We'll see.
All right, I'm excited to see it. And going back to the more personal questions, can you tell us a little bit about your family? Did you have any brothers or sisters growing up, siblings, uncles, aunts that really influenced your choice to become a musician or helped you support you in this?
Yeah, so my parents are not musical at all, actually, and I have one younger sister who used to sing a little bit, but doesn't do that much anymore. But so there's not too much music in my family, but one of our really good friends, I call them my aunts, but we're not related. But it's 2 people from Costa Rica, and they're really good family friends with us. And one of them is the most talented guitar, piano. She literally does it all, and it's always blown me away. And so I think my love for music kind of started with that to an extent. And then electronic music was kind of something that I found, I guess, on my own. And there wasn't too much, I guess, influence from my direct family, just because they're not musical. But either way, they've been super supportive, and it's been really cool kind of seeing my project pick up and seeing them take greater interest in it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So back to more to the family aspect of this. what are some of your, let's talk about your childhood for a second. What are some of your fondest memories as a childhood? Anything exciting, any crazy things that happened that you would just love to share with us?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I have anything too crazy, but an early memory of kind of getting into music was I literally I got a really small DJ board for Christmas one year. I think I was probably 12 or 13 years old. And literally every day I would get home from school, middle school, I guess, and set it up in like my family's like storage room. It was kind of like an attic deal. And like, so there's like all this boxes and just storage stuff around, and I would set that up, and I eventually saved up and bought like some colored lights, and I would just DJ like, and play like big room house like by myself for like 2 hours, and kind of like just that kind of feeling was really cool to me because it was the first thing that I was really passionate about. So kind of exploring that music, and then even though I was only in my attic, it felt like I was playing EDC or Ultra like in my own mind, just because the excitement of finding new music. And at the time it was all like Big Room, Martin Garrix, Hardwell, all that stuff was what I was listening to. But I feel like that was kind of a gateway into what led me to really get into music.
Okay. Another thing about going on into things that really got you into music, are there any other moments that you think really impacted you throughout your entirety of your life?
I think one of the biggest moments that I've kind of come to fruition recently is the idea of basically making music to not basically just fit the consumers, because nowadays, given Spotify and how accessible music is, a lot of artists will release like 3 albums a year even. A lot of the biggest artists are constantly putting out music and kind of not focusing on the entirety of the experience around it. And something that's really important to my brand is kind of being able to create those experiences and kind of the more, I guess, timeless aspects of an album, rather than just getting out songs or albums with like 1 or 2 hit songs and then the rest just being fillers. Which I see some artists putting out multiple albums a year that are really good, but I just feel like for my project, I want to take my time and really almost resemble that feeling of going to a record store and buying a record, which I didn't really have in my lifetime, but I know was really important before I was born. Kind of investing yourself to be a part of the artist project rather than just streaming their music and not really investing you into the artist kind of story and experience.
Okay, yeah, that's a very interesting point. Like, just make sure to, or not make sure, sorry, but to release more personalized tracks rather than pumping out stuff all the time.
Right.
That's where the idea you're going for.
Yeah.
Okay. What, going back to that record store idea, kind of, what was this is kind of a left field question, but what was your first album you ever bought, and why did you go for it?
So the first album that I remember buying was probably I don't remember which one, but probably one of early Major Lazer records. Because for a while, like I said, like my generation didn't really grow up going to record stores or anything. But that was the first album that I remember like consciously choosing to buy the entire album on iTunes rather than just like buying one single or something like that, which was interesting for me because at the time Major Lazer was kind of like one of the first, at least electronic artists that kind of pushed me towards that direction. And so I felt like buying the whole album, even if I didn't necessarily like all the songs, being able to listen through like each song tells a greater story than buying like just the hit songs and just listening to those.
Absolutely, it does. And Major Lazer always been really, really good, I feel like, with making a very cohesive album.
Totally, yeah.
So, how old were you when you first went to your first ever concert, and who was it?
I was 15 years old, and I saw Zed in Dallas. It was Zed, Madian, and I think that was all. I think there was one other supporting act, but I can't remember. But I actually met Madian on the, so he booked, Zed was playing a venue called Southside Barm in Dallas, which is an indoor venue, but I guess they sold so many tickets that they switched it to Zed's festival production. So they brought like giant 18-wheelers and set it up in the parking lot. And so there were like thousands of people there. And Madian opened for Zed. And then after Madian's set, I went over to like the chain link fence that kind of separated the stairs on the stage. And I'll have to find it, but I have a picture with Madian of 15-year-old me meeting Madian. And I had no idea who he was at this time, but it's kind of a weird feeling now because now he's like one of my favorite musicians. But it was cool, yeah.
What about your first festival, and how do you think that impacted you going to one of these massive festivals?
So I
Or
actually
smaller?
haven't been to an electronic festival yet, which
Okay.
is pretty interesting. But I've been to, so in my city, obviously growing up in high school, I don't know if this is just me, but I feel like a lot of high schools, their main genre of music is hip hop. And so there's a big hip hop festival, which was phenomenal. It's really well done. It's called Jambalaya, and it's a kind of a Texas staple. And so I've been to that 3 years in a row, which was really cool, especially just seeing the energy around kind of festivals that are based in certain cities, not like traveling festivals or something, because it almost brings a sense of like, it was kind of like a national holiday for my generation in like Dallas, if that makes sense, where everyone
Mhm.
brought the same energy that day, which was really cool to see. So I'm excited to see that side in the electronic scene, which I definitely would have been to festivals by now, but COVID happened, and
COVID
so
happened and no one's able to go to anything.
exactly. And I just turned 18 before COVID started, and so I didn't really have too much time to kind of get into a lot of those festivals that are age restricted.
Okay. Well, if you're ever up here, we have a very local scene at the Gorge that is in Washington that is amazing. So if you
Yeah,
ever get a chance to play there, do it, I'd say.
the gorge looks incredible.
Um, what is one thing you feel is very unique about you, whether it's your personality or in your music? What is the thing that stands out to you as being you?
I would say kind of a simpler embodiment of my point earlier about kind of making albums their whole experiences.
Hmm.
Something that I'll never do if I sign with a label is turn over the rights for album art. I think that album art is something that's so neglected nowadays, and it just I feel like a lot of people kind of take that for granted. But my favorite thing in the world, I'll literally go in Photoshop and kind of design like an early stage of album art after I make a song for like 30 minutes, even if it's still like a very rough demo. I love to kind of embody the rest of the experience that you're going to get from the song rather than just the music all at once. So I think working on all that stuff together as the song is created kind of creates a more cohesive story to tell when the song actually comes out.
Okay, so tie that artwork directly into the music in a way,
Right.
rather than just generic pictures or generic people.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. What is one thing that most people you feel like don't know about
Um, I would say that I'm super outdoorsy. Like I love fishing, I love camping, and like that road trip that we went on,
you? Hmm.
that I wrote Go On. Actually, we camped pretty much everywhere we went. So we were in multiple different national parks, and I just love being in nature and kind of using that to translate into my music. Even though I guess nature isn't necessarily a direct translation into electronic music, that seems very like a false fallacy or whatever. But I feel like using nature to kind of influence songs is something that's really important, and I just love being outside and camping and things like that.
All right, yeah. Uh, if you could give one piece of advice to your fans about their career, their life, or anything, what would it be? Oh, just
Hmm.
1 second. I gotta move again. Sorry
No,
about that.
no worries at all.
I think. Okay. Yeah, it looks like this is all set up, so I can go back out here again. So, all right. So back to the question. So, is there, what is the one piece of advice you give to anyone when it comes to their life? Just the one thing that you would think kind of, I don't know, help them out the most, or just, yeah.
So my advice, which I still try to live by to this day, and I'm not great at it. I don't think anyone is, but is literally do everything. Do whatever you can. Like our life on earth is so limited, and especially nowadays, we're expected to do a lot of different things that are very or oftentimes against what we're kind of passionate about. And so my advice is even if you start small, get a friend, go to a thrift store, buy a weird outfit and go to a super casual dinner. Like things like that. If you can save up for it, go on road trips, do these things. Don't let your life be one that's stagnant. Kind of live that life that's weird. And if you have these passions like music, which I feel very fortunate to have found my passion, but pursue it, because I know it sounds cheesy, but like you never know if you don't try. So do everything, do as much as you can, because we really don't have that much time here.
All right. I think that's absolutely amazing advice. Go out, go do the things that in your brain you're always like, say, do it. But there's always a little thing in the back of your head telling you no. go do it. I absolutely agree with you on that.
Exactly. This is your
Uh,
sign.
hmm do you have anything else you'd like to say to anyone listening, or to me, or to anyone? Any
Not too much. Just go stream, go, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, go stream go. I know I've shown at least half a dozen of my friends that song because I liked it so much, and they're starting to share it to their friends. So I
Awesome.
you got a
I
fan in me.
appreciate that so much.
Hmm You have a wonderful day, won't you,
Thank
Cole?
you so much. Have a great one.
You as well.